This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9. English news as it should be.
Very good morning. You're watching News9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. On the show this morning, the phone call between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and U.S. President Donald Trump, talking trade and other aspects of geopolitics and geoeconomics. We'll get you all those details on the show this morning. Also on the show, the much-awaited ICICI Prudential AMC IPO opens today. Should you subscribe? We'll get Nishal Maheshwari on the show to give you a perspective on that new listing. And of course, on the show, stories from around the world. Disney strikes $1 billion deal with OpenAI. All Disney characters will be available on license on Sora. All this and more on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. Thank you so much for tuning in this Friday morning. Before we get into the stories, here's a look at the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to U.S. President Donald Trump. Leaders discuss India-U.S. progress in the global strategic partnership. Talks come days after Putin's New Delhi visit. India and the U.S. wrap up two-day trade talks with both sides reporting positive progress on proposed bilateral agreement as Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal urges Washington to sign if satisfied. And India-U.S. trade pact edges closer even as Chief Economic Advisor Anantha Nageswaran says most issues are resolved and expects agreement by the month of March. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal says India-EU trade pact close to breakthrough as both sides push to resolve the final hurdles and aim for a balanced agreement amid calls for global cooperation on raw material supply. Prada is back in the news, all expected to launch an 84,000 rupee Kolhapuri-inspired sandals made in India as part of new artisan partnership as Piyush Goyal backs project with $1 billion export vision. New Zealand delegation arrives in India today for final phase of free trade agreement talks as New Zealand's Trade Minister Todd McClay and Piyush Goyal will review progress on a deal aimed at boosting trade and investment. Aviation regulator, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation summons Indigo's CEO as widespread flight cancellations continue across major airports even through Thursday. Meanwhile, Indigo has announced a 10,000 rupee compensation as DGCA intensifies scrutiny with officials stationed at airline headquarters amid mounting flight cancellations. And the much-awaited ICICI Prudential AMC IPO opens today. It's a 10,602 crore rupee public offering as the 3-decade-old fund house gears up for its long-awaited Dalal Street debut. Top story this morning. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and U.S. President Donald Trump held a telephonic conversation Thursday evening reviewing the progress of the India-U.S. Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership. Both leaders expressed satisfaction over the steady strengthening of bilateral cooperation across multiple sectors. According to an official statement, the discussion also focused on sustaining momentum in efforts to boost bilateral trade. The two leaders also exchanged views on expanding cooperation in critical technologies, energy, defense and security and other priority areas under the India-U.S. catalyzing opportunities for military partnership, accelerated commerce and technology framework called Compact for the 21st century. Prime Minister Modi and President Trump further discussed key regional and global developments, agreeing to work closely to address shared challenges and advance common strategic interests. Remember, their conversation comes just days after Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in New Delhi for a crucial two-day summit with Prime Minister Modi. Meanwhile, India and the United States have wrapped up 2 days of high-level talks in New Delhi on Thursday, with both sides reviewing ongoing negotiations for the long-awaited bilateral trade agreement. According to Commerce Ministry, the discussions were purposeful and positive, with the two delegations exchanging views on a range of trade and economic issues. The U.S. team was led by Deputy Trade Representative Rick Switzer, who was on his first visit to India since assuming office. During his stay, he met Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal and other senior officials. According to officials, the visit gave both sides an opportunity to take stock of negotiations aimed at finalizing the first tranche of the trade pact that seeks to double bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. So far, 6 rounds of talks have been held. Remember, for the 4th year in a row, the U.S. remained India's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade touching nearly $132 billion in financial year 2024-25. Meanwhile, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal welcomed Washington's assessment of India's latest offer, described by U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer as the best ever from New Delhi. But Goyal made it clear that if the U.S. is happy, it should sign on the dotted lines, while refusing to reveal the specifics of India's proposal or commit to a timeline. Remember, the Trump administration had imposed a steep 50% tariff on Indian exports, driving up cost of exporters and weighing on the Indian rupee, which recently slipped past the 90 rupees to a dollar mark. India has insisted that resolving trade issues will be crucial to sealing the first phase of the deal. Washington is seeking duty cuts on agriculture and industrial products, but New Delhi continues to hold firm, saying it will not compromise on the interests of farmers or the MSMEs.
Well, that only the USTR can answer. His happiness is very much welcome, and I do believe that if they are very happy, they should be signing on the dotted line.
Meanwhile, Chief Economic Advisor V. Anantha Nageswaran said that as India and the United States appear closer than ever to a long-awaited bilateral trade deal, most of the outstanding issues have now been resolved. In an interview, Nageswaran said he would be surprised if the trade does not materialize by March, even though earlier hopes for wrapping it up by November did not happen. He also added that while timelines remain difficult, the agreement is now well within reach. The CEA also reiterated confidence in India's economic outlook for FY27 and described the rupee as undervalued relative to fundamentals, indicating room for stability as trade negotiations conclude. And Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal expressed confidence that India and the European Union are close to resolving the remaining hurdles in finalizing the long-pending free trade agreement. While he did not commit to a timeline, Goyal said the pact would open up new opportunities for both sides, with Italy and other EU nations able to export wines and automobiles to India, while India would gain wider access to European markets for its whiskies, textiles and auto components. Goyal, speaking at the Italy-India Business Forum alongside Italy's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani, said both negotiating teams are leaving no stone unturned to deliver a fair, balanced and mutually beneficial agreement. He stressed that only a few issues remain and that India is confident of getting them over the line. Both leaders also highlighted the need for deeper cooperation among democracies to ensure smooth and reliable access to critical raw materials. Meanwhile, Tajani said no single country should act as a kingmaker in deciding global raw material prices and called for a broader political alignment between Europe, India, Japan and the United States to stabilize supply chains.
India is very committed also to the free trade agreement, which will create the enabling framework of fair, equitable and balanced free trade agreement, which is a win-win for both European Union and India. And I can assure you that our friend Marosh and I are leaving no stone unturned to get some good outcomes. We just had very extensive engagements on Monday and Tuesday earlier this week. Given the political guidance and leadership of member states such as yourself, given Prime Minister Narendra Modi's own personal commitment to the EU-India partnership, I do believe we should be able to get this over the finishing line.
Meanwhile, Italian luxury brand Prada is launching a special limited edition collection of sandals in India inspired by the country's traditional Kolhapuri chappals. Each pair will be priced at $930, which is around 84,000 rupees as per today's exchange rate. The company plans to produce 2,000 pairs in Maharashtra and Karnataka. The project is a collaboration with two state-backed leather development bodies, Lidcom and Lidcar, combining Indian craftsmanship with Italian design and technology. Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said that Kolhapuri chappals have the potential to become a $1 billion export opportunity for India every year. Goyal also welcomed the partnership, saying Maharashtra's iconic footwear can become a global brand, and recalling that he himself wore Kolhapuris growing up. Listen in.
Friends, I was very happy when I heard about the collaboration between Prada and our Kolhapuri chappal manufacturers. For the last several years, on many occasions, including before the press, I've often wondered why Kolhapuri chappals, with their beautiful, intricate designs and handwork, bright colors, comfort, and unique way of presentation, should not become a global brand. I am happy that Prada has picked that up. I am happy that we will now be able to offer the Kolhapuri brand, the Kolhapuri designs to the rest of the world. And I do hope, I had always envisaged Kolhapuri chappals to be able to do an export of $1 billion from India.
Remember, this move comes after Prada faced backlash 6 months ago. The brand had showcased sandals in Milan that strongly resembled the 12th century Kolhapuri style, sparking criticism from Indian artisans and politicians over cultural appropriation. Prada later acknowledged the influence and began discussions with artisan groups. The collection will go on sale in Feb 2026 across 40 Prada stores worldwide as well as online. A 3-year partnership is also being set up to train local artisans, including skill programs in India and opportunities for them to learn at Prada's Academy in Italy. The project aims to recognize artisans in Maharashtra and Karnataka, ensure credit and fair collaboration, and help preserve and pass on traditional skills to younger generations. And in other trade deals, a high-level delegation from New Zealand is arriving in India today for a crucial round of talks on the proposed India-New Zealand free trade agreement. The visit comes as negotiations enter their final phase, with New Zealand's Trade Minister Todd McClay scheduled to meet Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal in New Delhi to assess the progress made so far. The two countries formally launched FTA negotiations on March 16th this year and have since completed 4 rounds of talks. Bilateral merchandise trade has been growing rapidly as it reached $1.3 billion in FY 24-25, a jump of nearly 49% from the previous year. Officials believe a free trade agreement could give this an even bigger push, helping expand market access, improve investment ties, and strengthen supply chain resilience between the two Indo-Pacific partners. New Zealand's average import tariff is just 2.3%, making it one of the world's more open markets. Under an FTA, both sides would look to substantially reduce or eliminate customs duties altogether on a wide range of goods, while also easing norms for services and investment. This isn't the first time both countries have attempted such a pact. Negotiations for a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement began back in 2010 but stalled in 2015 after 9 rounds of talks. Remember, India's key exports to New Zealand include textiles, pharmaceuticals, refined petroleum products, agricultural machinery, auto, steel, shrimps, among others. Today's talks will aim to narrow the remaining gaps and set the stage for a modern, mutually beneficial trade deal that could deepen economic cooperation between India and New Zealand. India's aviation regulator, Directorate General of Civil Aviation, has summoned Indigo CEO Peter Elbers yet again to appear before a special committee of officers at the DGCA today, as the watchdog intensifies its probe into the airline's massive operational breakdown. The summons were disclosed in a regulatory filing to stock exchanges on Thursday, which confirmed that Elbers has been asked to assist in the inquiry into widespread flight cancellations and crew-related disruptions that have thrown passenger movement into chaos this week. A 4-member DGCA committee will question the Indigo chief as part of its ongoing investigation into what has become one of the airline's worst service crises in recent years. And even as the summons went public, the disruptions continued. On Thursday alone, Indigo cancelled 60 flights from Bengaluru's Kempegowda International Airport. Passengers faced long queues, sudden schedule changes and extended delays. Now this comes on the heels of a severely disrupted Wednesday when Indigo cancelled a staggering 220 flights across Delhi, Bengaluru and Mumbai. Delhi was the worst hit, accounting for 137 cancellations in a single day. Remember, after days of mounting criticism, Indigo chairman Vikram Mehta finally broke his silence on Wednesday, issuing a public apology for the disruptions. As the DGCA steps up scrutiny as well as passengers continue to face uncertainty, all eyes will now be on today's meeting, where the Indigo CEO will be expected to provide detailed explanations for the crisis and the airline's plans to restore normalcy. Meanwhile, DGCA has intensified its scrutiny of crisis-hit Indigo, deploying officials inside the airline's headquarters to monitor operations, cancellations and refunds in real time. This comes as Indigo announced 10,000 rupee travel vouchers for passengers affected by mass disruptions last week. Remember, the Civil Aviation Ministry had directed Indigo to cut its winter schedule by 10%. A 4-member DGCA inquiry panel is examining manpower planning, fluctuating rostering systems and the airline's preparedness for new pilot duty time norms that took effect on November 1st. DGCA officials stationed at Indigo's headquarters in Gurugram will now file daily reports as the airline works to restore normal operations and process compensation for thousands of affected passengers. And we will step into a very short break, but a lot more to look forward to on the show ahead. After the break, Nishal Maheshwari will be joining us, where among the other indicators which are driving up markets this morning, we will also discuss the much-awaited ICICI Prudential IPO. That's not all. Even on the show later on, we will discuss the billion-dollar deal between Disney as well as OpenAI, as all the Disney characters will be licensed for production on Sora. All this and more. Continue watching News 9, and we'll be back with Morning Brief at 9.
Powered by Servo Hypersport F5 when speed is your default.
यार सोच रहा हूँ पॉलिसी बाजार से टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस ले लेता हूँ, ताकि मेरे बाद फैमिली को पैसों की कमी ना। तू भी ले ले।
यार अभी तो यंग है यार, बाद में देखते हैं। आजा।
पॉलिसी बाजार पर 0 GST के साथ अब 1 करोड़ का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 400 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
Speed, it's relative. The more you speed up, the more the world slows down. And when you are fast enough, everything becomes still. That's when you see the world as it truly is. Servo Hypersport F5, when speed is your default.
क्वालिटी पे इतना कॉन्फिडेंस, इसीलिए बिरला ऑफिस अश्योरेंस। 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे। रजिस्टर करो birlaoffice.com पर।
हर स्वाद में बसा, हर दाद में बसा, ये मेरा चीज है।
50 सालों से जो बना इस देश की शान, वो है अमूल चीज। Our very first Business and Economy Literature Fest
2025 on the 20th and 21st of December at Taj Talkutir, Kolkata.
Presented by EIILM Kolkata. Associate sponsor Bama Lorry, Mukhorochuk, Alliance Broadband, and Priyagopal Bishoi.
Why is West trying to fuel anti-Russia sentiment before Putin's visit? Why is India important in this narrative war? Which are the red lines for the Russia that the West has crossed? And what is the Indian role here? One of the biggest bilateral agendas of the President Vladimir Putin's state visit to India. Fighters are on the agenda, sources are saying.
It is about 17 Mach of the terminal velocity. No one can shut it down.
Local production at HAL's Nashik facility that begins on December 4th is greater defense cooperation. Is it correct to say that the S-500 are a completely different ballgame? The Su-57 represents Russia's leap into fifth generation technology.
They always give us the contemporary technology.
Do you think that Zelensky really underestimated the Russian resolve? That Trump is not deeply invested in NATO? Do you think that if there's a peace deal, if something happens, if there's a breakthrough, what will be the future of NATO? Russians are always available to us in the context of the transfer of technology.
You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. We will get into all the market action in this segment. But first up, let's look at what happened on Wall Street. Well, in the U.S. markets, the S&P 500 and Dow closed at record highs on Thursday as investors rotated into financial stocks after a Federal Reserve rate cut that sounded less hawkish than expected. But the Nasdaq lagged with weakness in tech shares after Oracle's gloomy financial update raised fresh doubts about the big ticket AI spending. Take a look.
U.S. stocks closed mixed on Thursday, with the Dow climbing more than 1.3% to end at a record high, the S&P 500 edging into the green to also notch a record high close, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq shedding 0.25%. Oracle stoked fears of an AI bubble after it warned it would spend $15 billion more than expected in order to attract AI cloud computing customers. The company's shares sank nearly 11%. Investors also continue to digest the 0.25 percentage point rate cut from the Federal Reserve, with Chair Jerome Powell on Wednesday signaling a pause on further easing. Still, the Fed projected one rate cut in 2026 and one in 2027 as it balances signs of labor market weakness with still elevated inflation. Nikki Lanier is CEO of Harper Slade and former senior vice president of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis.
I think the Fed's goalpost of 2% for inflation will remain, and policy will be made manifest to try to make that goal real. So the most recent move that we've seen from the Federal Reserve, I think, is an indicator of cautious confidence. It's not pessimistic, it's not exuberant, but the Fed is acknowledging real softening in the economy while also making it very clear that they're not going to jeopardize progress on inflation, which in my mind signals the importance of trying to ascertain that 2% goal.
Other stocks on the move Thursday included Lululemon Athletica, which soared about 12% in extended trading after the company lifted its annual profit forecast and approved a $1 billion increase to its stock buyback program. Lululemon also said its CEO Calvin McDonald will step down in January after about 7 years at the helm as the retailer navigates a challenging consumer environment as well as growing competition from newer brands. And shares of Walt Disney rose nearly 2.5% after the company announced a $1 billion equity investment in OpenAI. Disney will also let OpenAI use characters from Star Wars, Pixar, and Marvel in its Sora AI video generator in a crucial deal that could reshape how Hollywood makes content.
Well, we will come into more details on that Sora collaboration with Disney in just a bit. But first up, let's look at the Indian markets now. And it seems to be a positive start on the Lal Street this morning, as Sensex and Nifty both inching about 0.33% higher in trade. Remember, yesterday was a volatile session where we saw early cuts and then we saw some gains. Markets eventually closing in the green, up about 0.5%. But this morning, on top of that, we are seeing some positive momentum being built up. As things stand right now, 10 minutes into trade open, the Nifty 50 is just about 10 points behind that 26,000 psychological level. Meanwhile, Sensex is about 130 points above that 85,000 level. So nothing really to complain as far as the mood on the Lal Street goes this morning. Volatility has edged lower. It's down about 10.2 or so at the moment. Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map and try and see which are the sectors which are leading the rally this morning. And the biggest gainers seem to be at this moment, at least first 10 minutes into trading, ICICI Bank, which is up about 1%, and Geo Financial Services up about 0.8% or so in trade. Meanwhile, on the other side of the table, the non-energy minerals, Ultratech Cement is up about 1%, JSW Steel is up about 0.7%, but the biggest momentum actually coming from L&T, which is up about 2% or so in trade, followed by Adani, which is up about 1.13%. The laggards this morning continue to be pretty much the IT stocks. Remember, yesterday, immediately a few hours after the U.S. Fed had cut interest rates and the U.S. markets had inched higher, we saw there was a little bit of buying momentum in IT stocks before profit booking took place. So that's the mood on the Lal Street. On the Nifty 50 heat map, at least for the first 10 minutes or so in trade, Nishal Maheshwari is here to tell us a little more about what investors should expect today being the last day of the week and potentially next week as well. Mr. Maheshwari, thank you so much for your time, sir. Help us understand the mood. This morning at least seems to be positive. Volatility is low, but the kind of gains that we are seeing pretty much coming from non-energy minerals as well as the industrial services space. What's driving the momentum there, sir?
Well, I think there is a bit of a positive momentum given that our Prime Minister had a chat with the U.S. President.
Right.
And I think it is largely around the trade deal. But so I think the market is expected, some expectations are there. Basically, the trade deal is likely to happen in the next three months.
Okay.
So I think some amount of optimism is there that there is some progress being made. So I think market is becoming a bit more optimistic about that.
All right, some optimism around the India-U.S. trade deal, but there are multiple other trade deals also that India has been negotiating. The India-EU free trade agreement as well as the India-New Zealand free trade agreement. These are deals that are also in talks on the verge of closure. How important are those deals for the sentiment on the Lal Street as compared to, let's say, the big ticket U.S. trade deal?
I don't think so. There is anything as significant as the U.S., given that the largest trading partner is the U.S. And we have a huge surplus as far as U.S. is concerned. So till the U.S. gets through, I don't think any other trade deals really matter, because those are all smaller trading partners. U.S. continues to remain the largest trading partner for us.
Right, of course. So U.S. taking precedence over other trading partners. Meanwhile, we are coming to the end of 2025. This was a year where we saw the Sensex as well as Nifty 50 touching and making those new all-time highs. And then we've seen a bit of a correction. In fact, quite a bit of a correction. In fact, Sensex right now is a good almost 1,000 odd points, 900 points below that lifetime mark. We didn't really find any positive momentum as far as the trade deal went when Sensex had touched that lifetime high. And now those corrections, do you expect that that there would be other triggers apart from just the India-U.S. trade deal that investors should watch out for as we come to the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026?
I think the biggest trigger would be basically the earnings and the current quarter. This quarter is supposed to be very good as far as consumption is concerned, given that the GST, full GST impact is going to come in. And this is the festive quarter also for the country. So I think next quarter, next a month and a half, I think the important thing is to watch out for the results.
Right.
And see how the consumption pattern is really shaped up after the GST cuts.
All right. So earnings in the context of GST cuts would be the triggers to look forward to, especially in the month of Jan. Meanwhile, the street has been abuzz, Mr. Maheshwari, with IPOs, and we are seeing an IPO a day pretty much. And today is the big one. ICICI Prudential AMC IPO opens. I'd like to seek your advice on what investors should do. Should they subscribe or not? But first up, some details about the IPO. It opens today, open until the 16th of December, and the allotment is going to happen on the 17th of December, listing on the 19th of December. Remember, the total size of the IPO is a whopping 10,602 crore rupees, with a price band between 2,061 rupees to 2,165 rupees per share, coming in lot sizes of 6 shares. On the first day of the open of the IPO, it is already attracting a grey market premium of about 5% or so. So, Mr. Maheshwari, back to you, sir. A company which controls an AUM of about 33,000 odd crore rupees, a market share of 20%, and solid net profits. In fact, last year it closed its books at about 2,600 odd crore rupees, and just the first half of this financial year, it has already raked in about 1,600 odd crore rupees, attracting a PU of about 33x. Your advice to investors, is this an IPO that they should subscribe to?
So, I have not done much study on that basis because I do not subscribe to IPOs. I really wait out and see basically how these IPOs post the listing basically perform a couple of quarters before I take a call on these.
Okay.
But ICICI Pru is the market leader, one of the market leader. I wouldn't say, I think SBI in terms of AUM, SBI mutual fund is the market leader, and then but the active equity funds, basically ICICI Pru is the market leader. Given the pedigree and all, I think if one is a long-term holder, definitely one should look at it. But I'm saying the only issue I see is the valuation. So I think these are all aggressively priced IPOs. One should be a bit cautious there.
All right. And how long before investors should understand that that the valuation has corrected to its normal market accepted levels? Would it be the first 1 week, the first 1 month into trade after the IPO list? What would be a good time frame for investors to make a calculated decision on whether they should buy the stock or not?
I think one should wait for a couple of quarters before taking a call on any IPO.
Okay.
So that is the way basically I look at it, because a lot of things basically which has not been discussed during the IPO. A lot of analysts start looking at the historical balance sheets, the numbers which have not been disclosed to public. So I think those numbers, once it goes through the scrutiny, I think a couple of quarters is a good time basically to understand whether to look at the company or not.
All right, wait a couple of quarters is the word coming in, Mr. Maheshwari. Another headline that was all over yesterday was the Indian rupee slipping to its lifetime low of 90 rupees and 47 paisa per dollar. Remember, the Indian currency has tanked about 5% this calendar year against the US dollar. A lot of issues which are driving down the valuation of the Indian rupee, even as the chief economic advisor, Anantha Nageswaran, says that the Indian rupee is massively undervalued. First up, of course, is the Trump tariffs, which have had a negative impact on India's exports, followed by, of course, the wide trade deficit on account of India importing oil as well as gold. Then, of course, the FPI outflow that we've seen, not just on the Indian equity markets, but also the bond markets, and lesser intervention from the Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Maheshwari, how do you view this tailspin that the Indian rupee finds itself in? And is it really something that investors or people at large should be concerned about at the moment?
Definitely they should be, basically, because that is what is driving the foreign institutional investors out, because one, you are losing money because of the rupee depreciation, and that is pushing them to sell, and it just goes into a tailspin basically, because one is driving the other. Now, I think everybody is waiting for the U.S. trade deal to happen. And once that trade deal comes through, basically, I think that's the time I think the reset will happen. Okay. Whether we'll appreciate how much from that level is what we have to see.
Are we seeing lesser intervention from the Reserve Bank of India, sir? It used to be a little more aggressive. In fact, at least during the time that Shaktikanta Das was the governor, we used to see a lot more intervention in keeping the rupee's value in check. But are we seeing a lot less of that happening now? And if that's the case, why so?
I'm really not privy to that, basically, so difficult to comment whether they were intervening earlier or not intervening now. But what I understand is basically is that this is a good strategy. Basically, the rupee has to find its own level.
Okay.
There is no point on unnecessarily propping the rupee up.
Right.
And it helps our exporters. So I'm saying basically it's also got its positives also.
Absolutely. So exports happen to be a positive for the Indian rupee pretty much being undervalued. Finally, before I let you go, some view from the commodity space. We also saw yesterday silver touching its pretty much lifetime high of 1,91,000 rupees per kg on MCX, and spot prices, at least in the metros, in some of the metros, had crossed 2 lakh rupees per kg. Even globally, there's been a new lifetime peak for silver at $63.25 per ounce. Of course, silver's use is not just ornamental, it also has industrial use, including EV batteries as well as electronic components. And all of this is driving up prices for silver. Mr. Maheshwari, do you think now that the US Fed has cut interest rates, is there going to be an impact on the massive buying that we've seen on silver and gold? Or do you think silver's industrial use is going to continue to drive demand and we should expect the price to go up even further?
So there is no clear demand report which I have seen basically saying that because of the industrial usage, so much demand is there in the next few years for us to see this kind of prices on silver.
Okay.
It is more in the speculative territory basically. So one needs to be cautious. Yes, I agree with you that there has been a demand increase because of the semiconductor and the solar panel use, but there is no report out there saying that so much more silver is going to be utilized because of this thing. So not sure about this basically. And if you look at gold, gold has no fundamentals basically.
Correct.
What gold used for except for jewelry.
Right.
So this is all I'm saying basically speculation, and everybody claiming that the global bank, the Chinese central bank is buying and everything, all that. But I don't know how much of that is being driven by the Chinese buying.
All right, Mr. Maheshwari, thank you so much for your time. Let's leave it at that this morning, but always a pleasure having you here with us on News 9. And before we slip into another short break, here are the global stories that we're tracking for you this Friday morning. U.S. President Donald Trump signs executive order putting federal authorities in charge of AI governance, aiming to stop individual states from separately regulating the technology. Millions of Americans brace for higher insurance bills as U.S. Senate shoots down plans to extend key healthcare subsidies, setting up a fight that will dominate next year's midterm elections. Ukraine says U.S. pressing Kyiv for land concessions to Russia under the latest peace plan, prompting the White House to acknowledge President Donald Trump is extremely frustrated with the stalemate. Oracle shares stumble over 16% as investors question the tech giant's massive AI investment binge with no clear timeline for returns, dragging broader tech sentiment much lower. OpenAI rolls out new models for complex math and science tasks, even as concerns grow over how the AI giant will monetize its massive spending spree in the race against Google. Wall Street announces $1 billion investment in OpenAI, allowing users to create short videos featuring the beloved Disney characters through artificial intelligence. Spanish lawmakers once again blocked the minority government spending plan for 2026, deepening fiscal paralysis as Madrid enters third consecutive year without a fresh financial blueprint. China confirms negotiations with European Union on a minimum price mechanism for Beijing-made electric vehicles, urging Brussels not to hold separate talks with individual manufacturers. And Jensen Huang, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, among other tech leaders, collectively received the 2025 Time Person of the Year honor, recognizing AI's unprecedented force in reshaping global power and culture. These stories on the other side of the break. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
$25 लाख का हॉस्पिटल बिल है। इतने पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे?
पैसों की चिंता आप मत कीजिए पापा।
मैम, सर का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस क्लेम अप्रूव हो गया है। आप पॉलिसी बाजार।
पॉलिसी बाजार पर 0 GST के साथ अब 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए महीने से शुरू।
Welcome to a cheese spread made with pure milk. For chilly evenings. For peppery sundowners. For garlic afternoons. For tikka picnics. Welcome to Amul cheese spread. Spread the richness.
अपनी सुपर पावर यूज करने का टाइम आ गया।
आप टेंशन मत लीजिए। IIFL फाइनेंस से झटपट गोल्ड लोन लीजिए और बिजनेस आगे बढ़ाइए।
लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे, अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए। IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात।
Our honorary speaker, Arun Maira, from Tata Group to Member Planning Commission, author of Reimagining India's Economy. His journey defines corporate India's legacy. Eastern India's first Business and Economy Literature Fest 2025, 20th and 21st December, Taj Talkutir, Kolkata.
Presented by EIILM Kolkata. Associate sponsor, Bama Lorry, Mukhorochuk, Alliance Broadband, and Priyagopal Bishoi.
I am really motivated to grow my career, learn new skills and prove myself.
अगले हफ्ते जॉब इंटरव्यू है, इंग्लिश में प्रैक्टिस करें?
Sure, let's try some.
I want good career, new skills, खुद को प्रूव करना है।
Great, you can try. I'm really motivated to grow my career, learn new skills, and prove myself. और हाँ, तुम ये भी बता सकती हो कि इस इंडस्ट्री और इस कंपनी को लेकर तुम क्या बोल सकते हो।
Welcome back. You're watching News9. This is Morning Brief at 9. Time now to shift focus to stories from around the world. Let's begin with regulations in the world of artificial intelligence. U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday signed a major executive order on artificial intelligence, a move aimed at creating one national standard that overrides the growing patchwork of state-level AI laws. The White House says the order will help block what it calls onerous state regulations, though rules protecting children online will still be allowed. Tech giants including OpenAI, Google and Meta have been pushing for federal oversight, while several states insist they need the power to regulate AI on their own. Listening to U.S. President Trump.
We have a big signing right now, and we have a tremendous industry where we're leading by a lot. It's the AI, artificial intelligence. I always thought it should be SI, supreme intelligence. It's a massive industry. We're leading China, we're leading everybody by a tremendous amount. The electricity is being built by them in every plant. They're building the electricity. We're getting them rapid approvals. But they're spending trillions of dollars. We want to have one central source of approval. And we have, I think, great Republican support. I think we probably have Democrat support too, because it's common sense.
And U.S. President Donald Trump also said on Thursday the United States will send a representative to attend yet another round of Russia-Ukraine peace talks in Europe this weekend, but only if, in his words, there is a good chance of real progress. The comments came as the White House openly acknowledged Donald Trump's growing frustration with the ongoing stalemate between Moscow and Kyiv.
I thought that we were very close with Russia to having a deal. I thought we were very close with Ukraine to having a deal. But as you know, there's some bombs being dropped.
Sort of a Korea-linked ceasefire that you don't resolve?
Well, there's a meeting on Saturday. We'll see whether or not we attend the meeting. We said we'll attend the meeting if we think there's a good chance of they want me to attend. They want us to attend. And we'll be attending the meeting on Saturday in Europe if we think there's a good chance. And we don't want to
waste a lot of time. We think it's negative. We want it to get settled.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv is working with Washington on a framework for possible security guarantees. One he insists must be strong enough to truly protect the country in case of any peace agreement with Russia. Zelensky said Europe, Canada, Japan, Australia and New Zealand must all be part of that security structure, adding that Ukraine is also discussing U.S. involvement in a long-term economic recovery plan for Ukraine.
An hour ago, we had conversation with the United States team about possible security guarantees for Ukraine, and we are working on a framework document, and it must be strong enough to truly work. We believe this document should be approved by the United States Congress. And if President Trump is speaking more about elections in Ukraine, I want to say this very openly. We can try to hold elections. Ukraine is not hiding from democracy, but to make elections possible, there must be a security component, and America can help with this the most.
Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has issued one of his starkest warnings on Russia, urging allies to dramatically ramp up defense spending, saying Moscow could be ready to use force against NATO within 5 years. Now, speaking in Berlin, Rutte said that many European nations still don't feel the urgency with respect to Russia threats, but they must boost production now to avoid a conflict on the scale seen by past generations.
We are Russia's next target, and we are already in harm's way. When I became NATO Secretary General last year, I warned that what is happening in Ukraine could happen to allied countries too, that we had to shift to a wartime mindset. We need to be ready, because at the end of this first quarter of the 21st century, conflicts are no longer fought at arm's length. Conflict is at our door. Russia has brought war back to Europe, and we must be prepared for the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured.
And in corporate news, Oracle shares plunged more than 16% on Thursday, triggering a wider sell-off in tech stocks. Now, investors are raising concerns about the company's massive AI spending and the lack of a clear timeline on when those investments will start to pay off.
Shares of Oracle slumped as much as 16.5% Thursday morning as fresh worries over the company's hefty spending on artificial intelligence sparked fears of an AI bubble. If the losses hold, Oracle would shed more than $90 billion in market value. The tech giant a day earlier forecast sales and profit that missed Wall Street estimates. It also warned that it would likely spend $15 billion more than planned in order to attract AI cloud computing customers. Investors saw it as a sign that the massive amounts of money Oracle is pouring into its AI efforts is not turning into profit as fast as Wall Street had hoped. Oracle's warnings come amid investor fears of a broader AI bubble stoked by sky-high valuations, limited real-world productivity gains, and complex circular investments, even as companies raise billions in debt to build AI infrastructure. In a bid to compete with industry giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, Oracle has signed cloud computing deals with OpenAI and others, which has helped its stock climb nearly 34% this year. Analysts have said a big portion of Oracle's spending is tied to OpenAI-related data centers. Oracle's 5-year credit default swaps, which offer bondholders a hedge against default, have shot to record highs as it borrows heavily for the data center build-out. Oracle's gloomy forecasts drag down shares of other tech stocks, with NVIDIA, Micron, and CoreWeave all lower in Thursday morning trading.
Walt Disney will invest $1 billion in OpenAI and allow the startup to use iconic characters from Star Wars, Pixar, and Marvel in its Sora AI video generator. It's a landmark deal that could reshape how Hollywood creates content. Take a look.
Walt Disney announced a deal with OpenAI that will let users of its Sora AI video generator make videos with characters from Star Wars, Pixar, and other movie franchises. Disney is also investing $1 billion in OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. The 3-year partnership could reshape how Hollywood makes content. It also sidesteps the industry's concerns over the impact of AI on creative jobs and intellectual property rights. Disney CEO Bob Iger told CNBC the agreement gives users access to 300 of its characters, but not to any talent likenesses or voices. He added, quote, "Through this collaboration with OpenAI, we will thoughtfully and responsibly extend the reach of our storytelling through generative AI, while respecting and protecting creators and their works." According to one person familiar with the matter, Iger and OpenAI's Sam Altman began talking years ago to explore more ways to showcase the potential of generative AI when combined with Disney's characters and stories. As part of the agreement with OpenAI, a selection of the videos by users will be made available for streaming on Disney+. That will allow Disney to capitalize on the growing appeal for short-form video content. The companies will use OpenAI's models to build new products and customer experiences, including for Disney Plus subscribers, while Disney will deploy ChatGPT for its employees. The partnership comes months after creative artists agency, Hollywood's premier talent agency, criticized OpenAI for exposing artists to significant risk through Sora and questioning if creative professionals would be compensated for their work.
And on to Asia now. China has renewed talks with the European Union on Thursday over a minimum price plan for Beijing-made electric vehicles, urging Brussels to not hold separate talks with individual manufacturers. The Chinese Commerce Minister hinted that discussions will most likely continue for another week.
China has restarted talks with the EU over electric vehicles. Beijing said Thursday negotiations over a minimum price plan for China-made EVs are back on and will continue into next week. The talks come more than a year after the EU approved duties of up to 45.3% on Chinese EVs. That after the European Commission began investigating whether China's EV makers got unfair subsidies which could lead to a supply overload in Europe. China argues its manufacturers are just more competitive than their European rivals. Beijing has also urged Brussels to accept a minimum price plan in place of tariffs. Analysts say the EU is a vital market for Chinese automakers, particularly as they face shrinking margins at home due to price wars and deflation. China's Commerce Ministry spokesperson He Yadong said China welcomed the EU's renewed commitment to restarting price negotiations. However, the Commission has previously said it believes a single minimum price wouldn't be enough to counter injury caused by subsidies.
Meanwhile, China has urged the Dutch government to push chipmaker Nexperia to send a delegation to China. The standoff between the Netherlands-based firm and its Chinese parent is once again threatening to disrupt the global auto supply chain. More details in this report.
Beijing on Thursday urged the Dutch government to push Nexperia to send a delegation to China. It's as a standoff between the Netherlands-based chipmaker and its Chinese parent company threatens again to disrupt the global automotive supply chain. Nexperia has been at odds with its Chinese parent Wingtech and Chinese operating subsidiaries. It's since the Dutch government took control of the firm in September. Beijing responded by halting the exports of Nexperia's finished products. That led to chip shortages for global automakers. Both governments relaxed their measures last month, but court fights and an internal fallout continue, with Beijing and Wingtech both warning disruptions could return if a long-term resolution isn't found soon. The comments from China came a day after Wingtech said it had invited the court-appointed custodians of Nexperia for talks. Nexperia said it was aware of the invitation, but had seen, quote, no indications of any willingness to engage in meaningful discussions on the restoration of the supply chain.
And finally, from tether-backed 21 Capital slumping on its market debut to Bank of America expanding crypto access, here's a look at the biggest developments in the world of digital assets this week.
From Tether-backed 21 Capital sliding on its debut to Bank of America expanding crypto access. This is Crypto Weekly. Shares of crypto treasury firm 21 Capital plunged on their first day of trading. It followed the completion of the company's merger with a blank check firm. It also comes as crypto-related stocks face mounting pressure. 21 is majority owned by stablecoin giant Tether and crypto exchange Bitfinex. Japanese investor SoftBank also holds a minority stake. Banks will be allowed to act as intermediaries on crypto transactions. That was according to a national U.S. bank regulator. It's the latest step by the Trump administration to close the gap between the traditional financial sector and crypto activities. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency issued new guidance saying banks can engage in what are known as riskless principal transactions that involve crypto assets and wouldn't receive scrutiny from the regulator. Cryptocurrencies tumbled on Thursday and Bitcoin fell back below the $90,000 threshold in a renewed signal of market jitters. That's as fresh concerns about artificial intelligence profits weighed on technology stocks. Risk sentiment turned sour after the U.S. cloud firm Oracle's profit and revenue outlook missed forecasts. Bank of America will begin allowing its wealth advisors to recommend allocations to crypto in client portfolios from next month. It's a landmark moment for the digital assets sector. Starting January the 5th, advisors of Bank of America Private Bank, Merrill and Merrill Edge will be able to suggest several crypto exchange-traded products without any asset threshold.
And with that, we come to an end of this edition of Morning Brief at 9. If you have been, thank you so much for watching. But news continues right here on News 9 after this short break, so don't go anywhere.
Ever wondered what makes the night come alive? Where flavors, lights and laughter dance in harmony. When the sun sets, stories rise of kitchens, cocktails and charisma. What makes your city's night so happy?